After the last installment of Civilization, there was a small but steadily growing group of critics who felt the game presented an inaccurate or even dangerous view of how civilizations work. And they had a point. I mean, it's hard to make a game that conflates civilization with empire without promoting imperialism, right? Civilizations aren't something that you win or lose based on dominating everyone else or being the first to hit a certain landmark. But, like all academic cultural criticism, it got escalated into more and more hysterical hot takes until you have, well, this. Becoming state. The biocultural imperialism of Sid Meier's civilization. I suggest that what Robinson Crusoe did for the colonial England, civilization does for today's United States. It is up to the reader to assess the weight of that influence. My own guess is that software such as Civilization is more likely to generate support for the Western superpowers than the traditional tools of cultural imperialism. The state that we become at the same time comes to itself by means of a not always precisely formulated yet salient Hegelian dialectic waltz of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Very much a la Fred Astaire, i.e. up a stairway, e.g. mysticism and the code of laws lead to a more advanced monarchy. In that sense, Civilization is a tool of creating subjects who internalize the logic and mythology of the greatest narrative of all embodied in the technology tree. Wait, what the fuck does that even mean? But, putting aside whether or not Sid Meier brainwashed a generation into supporting the Iraq War, and fortunately for us, Firaxis ignored all these criticisms and focused on making a fun game. But Civ 5 certainly wouldn't have reassured you that this game wasn't creating the next generation of Dick Cheneys. In pretty much any game, warmongering was the path of least resistance, and while the expansion succeeded in giving you other more peaceful strategies, being Hitler was the fastest way to get what you wanted. Want a cultural victory? Attack your neighbors so they can't generate any more culture. Behind in science? Attack your neighbors to slow them down. AI players were so inflexible that just conquering all but one civ was usually the only surefire way to get a diplomatic victory. But at least you had something to do mid-game, as opposed to Civilization 4. In Civ 4, you spent the early game expanding as fast as you could, and then you waited, and you either won or didn't. You could either tread water or start a war, which not only was miserably slow, but because basically everyone piled their units up on top of their cities, there was little opportunity to actually capture a city. It was a grinding, monotonous stalemate. Civ 6 is trying to give you the best of both worlds. It's pretty clear that the priority here was in spicing up the mid-game, while making sure you can't just conquer your way to victory. There are no civilizations with an inbuilt science advantage. The penalties for building abroad have been removed, but the benefits of trade have been greatly increased. The marquee change, though, is the new research bonus system. For each new technology, there's a mini-goal assigned to it, and if you meet it, you can research that technology in half the time. In theory, this gives players an opportunity to make a comeback without using military aggression, and forces you to adapt your strategy to the situation rather than just deciding before you start what type of victory you want to try for. So, does it work? Well, the scarcity and magnified importance of strategic resources, plus the AI's aversion to making fair trades, means spreading out early is again the only way to win. And aside from your success in doing that, your chances of winning basically hinge on the geography again. The research bonus system is too conservative to really mix things up. For instance, for a lot of mid-game technologies, the research bonus involves building or using something that's only unlocked by one of the precursor technologies. For instance, for a lot of mid-game technologies, the research bonus involves building or using something that's only unlocked by that technology's immediate prerequisite. This is done, of course, to keep players from jumping too far ahead, but the opportunity to leapfrog ahead to a future technology, either through luck or careful planning, and the risk and rewards of trying to do so are presumably the entire point of the new system. Why chicken out halfway on your own idea? So where does that leave you? Stagnation or war? Again. Which means the game is easy when you play the AI, and a lopsided, boring war game when you play other people. But maybe that's where we have to re-examine all those annoying political critiques from the beginning. because they're right about one thing. A civilization isn't a single organism interested only in growing and struggling against other civilizations for dominance. It's a collection, sometimes a very loose collection of people who share some experiences and values. Some leaders have had a singular vision for their civilization, but some civilizations don't even have a singular leader. Civilization, the game, as far as I can tell, needs to model itself as a death struggle between singular wills, because otherwise, how would you make it a game? But that way of thinking about it really only lends itself to warmongering. And the Civilization team doesn't want that. It doesn't want to be a dumbed-down version of Total War. It wants to represent the whole spectrum of human achievement, but those achievements came about through cooperation rather than competition, in the hopes that it would help all of humanity. Putting those in a competitive multiplayer game means all achievement, no matter how non-military, is zero-sum. Another civilization getting to space means you lose. Another country having a great culture is a threat rather than something you could share in. And this isn't just me complaining about ludonarrative dissonance or how it teaches kids the wrong ideology. This affects the gameplay on a fundamental level. There's a reason we associate this way of seeing civilization with people like, this guy. If positive sum achievement is made into a zero-sum game, then those achievements have to be subordinate to the real zero-sum games of expansion and military might. Why? Because achievements like culture, religion, and to a lesser extent science become a provocation to other players without giving you any advantage in defending yourself. It's not a coincidence that no matter how hard the developers try to balance the different win conditions, the most important things are always expansion and military might. That all sounds really negative, but I don't even really mean it as a criticism, if only because I can't think of any alternative. It's just the lay of the land. Anyway. Oh yeah, this is supposed to be a review, wasn't it? Civilization 6 is a big step sideways for the series. The new research bonus system doesn't do much to change the momentum of games and isn't consequential enough to change the player strategy except in early game. Maybe they'll come up with some fresher ideas in the expansion pack like they did for 5. As it stands, stick with Brave New World. At least the animated avatars aren't terrifying. I give it a 7 out of 10. 7.5 for old time's sake.
Each morning a missionary advertised with neon sign. He tells the native population that civilization is fine. And 3 educated savages holler from a bamboo tree.
Wait, is he gonna light that torch while standing over? Sir, you're gonna burn your, oh Jesus.